So I just went and watched the Raiders game against the Patriots so I could have a better understanding of them to break down this Charger preview. And I'm not going to say I was impressed by the Raiders. They definitely look a lot better, but I think they still have a lot of work to do. And they're running into the Chargers at the worst time. I mean, we're coming off of a big win over the Chiefs, a game in which we put up 400 yards of offense. The defense, I thought, played exceptionally well, or at least good enough. I mean, it did give up some yards to Mahomes, but the run defense, at the very least, was very, very encouraging. In the trenches, the Chargers just dominated. As simple as that. They were able to get pressure on Mahomes, get him out of the pocket, and Justin Herbert was very well protected. I thought specifically Zion, Bradley, and Mackay all played well, and even Trey Pipkins held his own on the right side at that tackle position. We know what Joe Alt brings, but this game's going to be one up front, and I think that's where the Raiders are most improved because they were super physical and they got after the Patriots. Drake May threw for 287 yards on 46 attempts, a 6.2 average. That's not very impressive. But you look at the run game for the Pats is 18 carries for 60 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. So the Chargers, they need to be able to run the ball to be effective against the Raiders because the weakness, the one thing we can kind of nitpick at against the Chiefs was our lack of run game. I thought the Chiefs' run D was absolutely sensational. As Amari Hampton, 15 for 48. That's 3.2 yards per carry. That's very, very low. You got to be able to run for over 100 yards if you're the Chargers. I mean, Greg Roman is the coach. That's what he specializes in. Now, in Roman's defense, they ran play action a ton. They put the ball into Herbert's hands and let him make decisions, let him be an athlete. It's not like the Chargers needed to run the ball to win this game. They couldn't and still won. But I think for the Raiders, they want to get back on track and they want to be more balanced. I'm looking at 25 carries, 34 passing attempts. That's a fine ratio, but I want to see even more rushing attempts in this game. And with Najee Harris now, of course, having an extra week to sort of recover and to get up to speed, he's going to be featured more as well to sort of take off that pressure from Amari and Hampton. I definitely want to see the Chargers utilize not necessarily their running backs more because they gave Hampton 15 carries. That's plenty of carries, but be more efficient. I want to see this interior be truly tested. And I think the Raiders are going to present that. The Chiefs, they've got Chris Jones, but outside of him, they don't really have much. All you have to do is just double Jones and take him out of the play. But for the Raiders, they're going to send a couple of guys after you. Max Crosby. They're going to send Adam Butler. And they're going to send Jonah Lealu. And Tyree Wilson, who's moved into the interior. He's been highly more effective. And the Raiders, they don't have the biggest names in the world, but they're good in the trenches. And they just let Christian Wilkins walk. They just released him with nothing in return, which goes to show how they trust this unit. I just hope that Charger fans don't underestimate the Raiders. It's a divisional game on the road in their building. It's going to be loud. It's going to be electric. And even though from what I saw against the Patriots, I wasn't overly impressed. I thought it was a good win. Not every game, of course, you have to score 30-plus points. Down in the trenches is where the Raiders stood out to me. They made sure that Geno Smith had enough time to be able to get the ball on target. It's very similar to how Herbert played against the Chiefs. Is he had time to throw, and when he had that time, he didn't miss. He hit his receivers. They were able to get open. That was the issue for the Chargers last season. The games they lost, the top teams like the Texans and the Steelers and the Chiefs, etc. Like those teams, they applied a lot of pressure to Herbert, but on Friday in Brazil, São Paulo, he had that time and he executed. Geno Smith had that time and he executed against the Patriots. And then the defense took care of the rest. It took away the run game. Drake May was forced to be a hero. As good as May is, you can't have him dropping back and throwing the ball 46 times. A lot of it as well wasn't even deep down the field. It was just underneath, and the Raiders were able to come up and make tackles. So, yeah, they played a lot of, honestly, like soft zone. The Patriots tried pressing, but it just didn't work. Against the Chargers, though, the game plan for the Raiders, it's going to be much different than it was against the Patriots because you're not going to be able to get away with that. You can't just sit back and zone. Herbert's going to pick that apart. They're going to have to probably send more blitzes, and guys like Trey Harris, for example, is going to have to step up and make a play. He only had one catch. Kendrick Lamar-Smith only had a target. Wasn't on the same page as Herbert. I do think the Chargers got to get the run game going as well. The play action worked, but it would work a lot better if you already had an established run game going. There's more you can do with it. So giving Greg Roman as many possibilities is going to be key for the Chargers. And I think this game, honestly, is just going to be decided, though, by how the Raiders defense is able to show up because it's possible that Las Vegas comes out here and they play a great defensive game and they keep their team in it and the Raiders offense does just enough. Like this could be a low scoring game, but it would tell me a lot about the Chargers if that isn't the case. If they come out here and they run it up again, they push the ball down the field, Amari Hampton gets going. Keenan Allen, Lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnson have a repeat of Friday in St. Paulo. There's just a lot I'm looking forward to in this game. It's on the road as well. It's interesting because it's not like LA to Las Vegas is that far. I mean, there's going to be a ton of Charger fans, but with the Raiders being 1-0 with Pete Carroll, sort of a new culture, it's going to be loud, and Herbert's going to have to step up to the challenge and get it done. But it would be fun, honestly, just to silence the Raiders because they have a lot of hype towards them. A lot of people think they're a sneaky playoff team, and I think the Chargers can go out there and kind of shut that out very quickly. And for the Raiders, they beat the Patriots, cool, but now can they beat an actual good team, a team that just took down the Chiefs, who have run this division ever since Patrick Mahomes took over? You go back to like 2017, 2018. We'll see if the Raiders can hang. I honestly think this is going to be a closer game than people think, probably for maybe three quarters. And I think eventually the Chargers are going to pull away, and it'll probably be like 27-17, or it'll probably be something along those lines. I think the Raiders will hang in for as long as they can, but eventually Herbert's going to get going, get this team on track, and they'll take care of it. I do think the Raiders are a good team. They've got Pete Carroll, of course they are, the additions they've made. Geno Smith, Ashton Jenney. I like Jacoby Myers a lot. That man won me $300 in one of my fantasy leagues. At the safety on the back end as well. Jamal Adams was a pickup. I thought he played very, very well against the Patriots. And Caillou Blue Kelly played well. He had an interception. So this is a defense you can't sleep on it. If you're the Chargers, you have to attack it like you attack the Chiefs. Not the same plan, but you have to be very, very aggressive. And you cannot be afraid to go out there and to throw the ball deep down the field. That's why the Chargers were so successful against the Chiefs, is they took those shots and they capitalized on them. Herbert had a clean pocket and he was able to get the ball on target versus the Texans. The last time we had saw the Chargers, they weren't able to do that because Herbert didn't have time and he rushed it, and it led to 4 interceptions, more than Herbert threw all playoffs. So I think the Chargers should, all regular season, but I think the Chargers should approach this game like they did the Chiefs. It's a divisional game. It doesn't matter if it's Kansas City or it's Las Vegas. It's a game of the division. It's a must-win game. Getting up to a 2-0 start, a 2-0 divisional lead, that's huge for the Bolts and how they're ultimately going to finish the season. I think the defense is honestly the stronger unit of this team. Pete Carroll, that's what he's known for, and it clearly showed. If you guys didn't see the game, it's going to be hard for me to sort of break it down without tape. But if you did see the game, they were flying around. They were physical. They were pushing and bull rushing the offensive line and getting to Drake May very, very quickly. And I don't want that to happen to Herbert. I think this is honestly more of a test than what we saw against the Chiefs. Because Kansas City, not to say they always get up to slow starts, but it takes them a little bit of time defensively under Steven Spagnuolo. It's a tough scheme to learn. They've got a lot of new faces. Not making excuses, the Chargers went out there and they took care of business, but the Raiders, they're going to be ready to play.